Hey, John, welcome along. Thank you so much for joining me. Really appreciate it. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to be a guest on the show. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for inviting me, Craig.
Great pleasure. Now, I guess knowing you're an extremely busy person with many irons in many fires. So I guess the hardest part is to work out exactly which to start on. But perhaps that's the first question of how is it that you are able to successfully navigate so many things all at one time?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I have thought about that from time to time, but I appear to be a very organized person. I mean, when Sharon came onto your podcast, she just started talking. But when I knew I was going to be on your podcast, I made a list of all the things that I could potentially talk about.
No.
And then for each of those, I put in bullet points so that I wouldn't forget something important.
Yeah, that's great.
So no, I've always been focused as well on my goals. You give me a goal that I believe in, I will achieve it.
Yeah. And from what I've seen of successful people, it does seem to be a very common theme, is that they're very clear, like yourself, on what the goal is, and then creating a pathway, a blueprint, a map on exactly how to get there.
Yeah, I have to believe in the goal.
Yeah.
If I believe in the goal, then it will be achieved.
Yeah.
Like we can talk about goals for a moment if you like.
Yeah, definitely.
Because one of my careers, I've had two main careers. One was teaching and one was as a production planning warehouse manager. I can mention Unilever because I had a good time there, so I'm only going to say nice things about them. But when I first began working there, some of the girls there were talking about going to Weight Watchers because they had to lose a bit of weight. And being realistic, I thought, well, I could lose a bit myself. And also, it was during my second marriage. I've had a few of them. And my second wife could also have lost a little bit of weight. But rather than nagging her and saying, come on, lose some weight, I thought if I go along to Weight Watchers, it might encourage her to also go along. That part didn't work, but I went. And they weighed me up and they measured me and they said, right, yes, to get to your goal weight, you have to lose 11, 12 kilos, or say 12. I thought, well, okay. And they said, normally the normal person loses half a kilo to 1 kilo a week if they follow the program properly. And I thought, well, I'm going to follow the program properly. That was never in doubt.
Yeah.
So I thought 1/2 to 1, 3 months. So that was my target, my goal. So I did everything correctly, and the 3 months came up and I achieved my goal weight. And people were saying, oh, are you excited, John, that you've achieved your goal weight? Well, no, there was no excitement because I always knew I was going to do it. It didn't come as a surprise. I was going to get there. And the funny thing is, once I achieved my goal weight, Weight Watchers said to me, have you considered becoming a Weight Watchers leader? Well, no, I hadn't, but I thought, well, there's another challenge. I enjoy a challenge.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, yep, let's do it. So I was running 3 sessions a week. And I got nominated in my second year of being a team leader, nominated as the Weight Watchers Team Leader of the Year for Victoria and Tasmania.
Wow, very cool.
Well, I thought maybe it's just because I'm the token male, who knows? But it was, I didn't win, but just the fact that I was nominated, there's only 4 of us nominated, and I thought, well, that's an achievement. So yeah, set me a goal, and if I believe in it, it will be done.
Yeah. That's, again, a similar theme I've seen with successful people is not only do they set the goal, but then it's not necessarily a surprise when they achieve it, or when they get there, or when they get close to it.
It's an expectation.
That's right, exactly. And quite often I've heard people that are successful asked, are you surprised? And, the response has been similar. It's like, well, yes and no. I mean, I have had a little bit of luck, and the success has probably been even greater than what I'd expected. But, for the better part, they had foreseen what was to come, because they'd planned for it. They'd set a goal, and then a map on exactly how to get there too.
And they believed in themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the same at Unilever when I was manager there. Every manager was given 5 KPIs. You know what a KPI is?
Yes.
Key performance indicator. Yeah.
Playing along.
Although I always used to say, but we never have PIs. We only have KPIs. PIs don't exist. Yeah. Anyway, so 5 KPIs. So I would look at it, analyze it, and work out how to achieve them. And every year I achieved my 5 KPIs. And after 3 years, they made me a high performer, which meant I got paid more on the bonus every year. Then when I achieved my KPIs for 10 years in a row, I was given sustained high performer and given an extra bonus at the end of the year. But the fact that I was achieving those KPIs was never a surprise, because I planned for it.
Yeah, that's right. It was inevitable. It was there from the very start, which, again, I've heard it compared to setting a course, in a car with a GPS. You've got to know, exactly what your final destination is, where you want to go. And then whether it's using the GPS or a map, you want to have a clear path on exactly how you're going to get there. There may be alternatives, there may be different options, but you've got a relatively clear path on exactly how you're going to arrive at that final destination.
That's true. Yes. But as I said, one of the important things, though, is to believe in yourself, believe that you are capable of doing it. Henry Ford said, and I've got a lot of quotes, so I might throw in a few from time to time. But
love a good quote.
He said, whether you believe you can or whether you believe you can't, you will be correct.
Yeah, that's such an awesome quote. It's one that I've used before, and it's just so true. Just having that, well, the belief, but also the mindset that, that it can be achieved, that positive outlook, that openness to do things, like you with the example of Weight Watchers. If you had have just straight away defaulted to, oh no, I'm not interested in that. And I discussed this last week with Sharon too. It's like, if you've got that openness, that willingness to just have a go, that's half the battle.
Well, I hate being bored, and I enjoy a challenge. So that was a challenge. And it was me pretty much, and a room full of women. There were hardly any men came along. But they all responded well, and most of them were very, very successful in achieving their weight loss goals, because the manager, the lady I took over from, she was all very lovey-dovey. If one of the women came along and said, oh, I've been bad this week and I haven't achieved what I wanted to, she'd go, oh, well, there, dear. At least you're trying. Whereas I was going, well, come on, shape up. If you don't do it, you're never going to achieve it. I was like the hard taskmaster, and they tended to respond to that.
Yeah, bit of tough love.
Yes, tough love.
And I've often said that I have a strong belief in everything being about balance. So there's, in that situation, there's clearly room for both. Sure, having that empathy and understanding and compassion for people is important. But especially in this day and age of, everyone getting a place, everyone getting a trophy, trophies for last and that sort of thing. It's just so important to also have that tough love, and to have that, that just being, it's what I've heard Gary V, who I'm a fan of, referred to as kind candor. So, it's still about being completely open and honest and frank.
That's what I had, kind candor. But they were there to achieve a goal, so I was there to help them.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. the only way you're going to achieve that is to, again, lay out that goal, lay out the path, and then to execute it, to actually, along the way, be steering the ship and aiming towards that destination too. Tell us a little bit about Unilever. Some people may be familiar with the brand. It is a brand that owns numerous other brands, but a large multinational company.
Well, I can talk about my journey through Unilever.
Yeah, awesome.
I was a teacher for 20 odd years, and near the end, I was around 39, and I began to feel myself just burning out, getting tired, losing the energy that I used to have with teaching. And I thought, I have not got another 20, 25 years in me. I'd just become old and cynical, and I'd seen too many teachers who'd got old and cynical and who were still teaching. And it wasn't fair for the children.
No.
And I thought, I never want to be one of them. So I'd always taught the children at school, if you believe in yourself and work hard enough, you can put whatever you put your mind to, you can achieve within reason. I mean, I'm never going to pole vault over, 15 feet or whatever, but you have to know what you can do and can't do.
Man's got to know his limitations, as Clint Eastwood said.
Yes. Well, Sharon tells me if I don't know. So I thought, okay, let's just do this. So I quit teaching. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew I could do something would come along. And at that very point in time, the only time ever, Rosella, back then, advertised for a senior clerk. I'd never done it before, have never done it since.
Wow.
And so I applied for it. I also applied to get a job at Shep News, but because I enjoy writing, I thought that could be fun. But so I applied for the job.
Shep as in Shepparton for anyone that's not
familiar. Yeah. Sorry. Locally,
small town in Victoria.
Tatura is Tat. Shepparton is Shep. Kyabram is Kai. Murchison is Merch. We just compressed.
That's the Australian way. We abbreviate everything.
Yes. I applied for the job there. I happened to notice, without deviating too much from the topic, but I happened to notice that they said that a knowledge of Lotus 123 would be useful. And I'd never heard of Lotus 123 when I applied for the job. And I can't lie. There's something within me that I just can't lie. I tend to, I call it lying by omission. If you ask me a question and I don't want to give you that answer, I will weave around it so that all of a sudden we're off track and go on whatever, but I can't tell an outright lie. So I spoke to a few people and said, Lotus 123, what the hell is it? And someone said, as a computer program. I said, oh, great. What does it do? And he said, it's to do with numbers and spreadsheets. I said, okay, that'll do me. Got to the interview. If they had have said, do you know Lotus 123? I would have had to have said, no, I'm sorry. But I didn't, and they didn't. Halfway through the interview, and I said, oh, and by the way, Lotus 123, what a great computer program. Those spreadsheets, they do such an amazing job with numbers. And they assumed I knew what I was talking about. Because I always knew if I got the job, I could soon learn it. I can learn anything I put my mind to. So I thought I could learn that. Yeah, and within 2 weeks after getting the job, I was doing Lotus 123 all over the place. So
I believe that was the early forerunner of like Excel spreadsheets.
Excel, yes, Excel. Yeah. And Excel's been my friend all the way through as a production planning manager. But anyway, I got the job there, and that was at that point Rosella was tomato processing. So it was just tomato soup, tomato sauce, tomato paste, and we did a bit of pickles and chutney.
They still make the best tomato sauce or ketchup, as some people may nowadays.
Yeah, but it's not made by Rosella anymore. It's made overseas, I think, because they sold the brand.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I got the job there. And part of the Rosella production plan was what we call the tomato season. So during the tomato season, we bring in like 60, 70,000 tonne of tomatoes over a 3-month, 2.5-month period.
Mm-hmm.
But they've got to be staggered as they come in. You can't just bring them all at once.
Yeah.
And of course, they don't grow perfectly to order as well. Sometimes, according to the weather, they're a bit slow, or if it warms up, they're a bit quick. So somebody had to manage the tomato season. And so they gave that job to me. Thank you very much. So it was like a 24/7 job, type of job. I didn't have any weekends off or anything like that over 3 months, but I didn't mind because I enjoyed it. It was a challenge. So you have to work out what production you can put in the plan in order to process the amount of tomatoes that have come in during that period. If you haven't got enough production, then tomatoes go to waste. If you've got too much production, then people are hanging around waiting for tomatoes to come in.
Yeah,
so
there's a shortfall. Yeah.
That was quite a bit of a challenge, but once you do it for a couple of years, it becomes quite easy. Then it's just the weather you have to worry about. And then they brought in Ragoletto, and we started making Ragoletto.
Pasta sauces, yeah?
Yeah, pasta sauce, sorry, yep.
Yeah.
Then chicken tonight. Everybody
Yes.
knows chicken tonight, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Brought that in. And we began to expand, and then we had a Lipton iced tea. We brought that on board as well. And by this stage, I'd been promoted to the planning manager, so I was doing all of that work. And of course, they gave me the warehouse on top of that. Thank you very much. That was also more work, but I didn't mind. So just planning all of that. And then we had a factory in Melbourne at Knoxfield doing all the cuppa soup, all the dry foods. And they had 13 lines down there making cuppa soup. And they decided to sell that factory and send all the cuppa soup to be made overseas. And our factory manager said, well, no, hang on. If you invest in our factory, we'll make the cuppa soup up here at Tatura. So they weighed up the pros and cons and decided that it would make more sense, actually, to do it here. It wouldn't have all the supply chain issues, and it wouldn't have to change all of their formulas because the materials overseas were a bit different to what you get here. So they then decided to invest $20 million in the Tatura factory and bring up all of those 13 lines up to here.
And when's this? What sort of time are we talking about? When would this have been?
2010.
Oh, okay, sure. Yep. 15 years ago. So yeah, still sort of similar money to today. I suppose it's the equivalent of 25 million or.
Yeah, maybe a little bit later, but around that time.
Yeah.
And so that was more work I had to then plan and work on. And I finally said at that point, I think I need an assistant manager. So they advertised all over the world for one. Wow. And I had a fella I had a lot of people from India wanted the job, but a fella from South Africa applied for it. His name was Giel. Giel. We call him Gil. But Giel. I think Dutch background or something. And he came out, and I liked what he could deliver, so I appointed him. And the interesting thing about that, which is a side story, but he and his wife came out, and there are two things. One, his wife couldn't believe that there were women driving trucks in Australia and women driving tractors in Australia, because that just didn't happen to the women in South Africa.
Okay, right, wow.
And also they went to, they arrived just before Christmas, so they went to a Christmas function up in the park with their children, their two children, and they couldn't believe that the parents would just let their children run all over the place. Because in South Africa, you have your children right against you with your arms around them. Whenever you walk anywhere, They're right there. You never ever let them away from arm's length. And here they were just running everywhere. So that was an eye-opener for them as well, just the freedom that we had.
That change of mindset, yeah.
It did. So we don't get all that sort of crime. We didn't back then, all the crime that you were getting in South Africa. And I showed him the front page of our local newspaper, which said on that day that he was there, stray dog mauls pet dog in backyard. I said, that's the main thing that happened.
Story. There's your,
yes. Yeah, that's so. And they're still living here, and they're still very, very happy now. And he's gone from strength to strength. He's no longer at Unilever, but he's got his own company up in Queensland. We're doing very, very well.
Fantastic.
So what else about Unilever? No, they're a great company to work for. I had no problems at all, and they employ local, so it gave many, many people in the area a job as well. So that was good.
And I know we've discussed previously, they previously started as the old Lever and Kitchen company, I believe. Kitchen
overseas. Yeah. Well, we became, we were Rosella, then we were Uni Foods, and then Unilever, but Unilever was Lever and Kitchen.
Right, I see. Yeah. How long did you end up staying with them, with Unilever?
I think 21 years.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Would have seen a few changes.
Retire. Oh, yes. Well, I mean, I got paid good money. I can't complain about that. But there was a lot of pressure, a little bit of stress as well. I've always said that the jobs cause pressure and people cause stress. And there was a bit of a combination of that. But I've seen people hang on when they're under pressure as they get older for too long, and then they have a stroke or they have some sort of medical condition, then the rest of their life has been ruined. So I thought, I'm healthy, I've got enough money now, time to just retire and move on. Yeah. I've always been able to make that sort of decision well, without any regrets. I used to have a motorbike. It was a Yamaha Midnight Special. It was a special bike. It was shaft driven, not chain driven.
Okay.
So you could just drive along at 120k. Not that I ever did. I wouldn't be like that. And no vibration on the handlebars, no nothing. And I sold it. And people said, "Oh, you sold your bike?" And I said, "Yes." I noticed I was missing volleys on the net playing tennis. And I said, "What's that got to do with your motorbike?" And I said, "Well, if you've ever ridden a motorbike, you know you have to be totally aware of what is happening around you at all times. Your reaction times have to be spot on. There are so many problems and issues that can occur from other cars, drivers, whatever, that if you're starting to slow down, if your reactions are no longer what they used to be, then you could be in trouble." So because I was no longer hitting those volleys on the net that I used to get to or anticipate or see or react to, I thought, sell a motorbike.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good that you saw that writing on the wall. And that is, excuse me, I guess that is a bit of a theme for you as well, as that ability to self-manage and self-regulate both in your personal life and your professional life.
Well, hopefully. I mean, I know I'm intelligent because I've done the IQ tests and all of that. And I was going to talk about one of the books I've written talks about sliding doors. And one of the biggest sliding door moment in my life was when I was 5 years old.
Okay.
People think, well, how can that be 5 years old? Why is that a sliding door moment? But because I was quite clever at school when I was in prep, or they call it formation year now, my teacher asked my parents to come up to the school, and they said, "Little Johnny's quite clever. We're we're thinking of putting him straight now into grade 1. So I was half a year in prep. And so we'll put him into grade 1. That will challenge him a bit more.
Yeah.
Little Johnny didn't have any say in it, but my parents thought, okay, let's do that. So all of a sudden I was in grade 1. And then the year after I was in grade 2 with all the kids who were at least 1 year, some were 2 years older than me. Because I was a tall person anyway, I fitted in quite okay. But from a maturity point of view, from that point on, I was always a bit more immature than everybody else in my class all the way through primary school and high school, just because of my age.
Just your natural development.
And also, yeah. And when it came to playing cricket and football, well, I wasn't strong enough or whatever physically there to play in the school football team or cricket team. But I was a good swimmer, actually. I had my own coach. He would pick me up before school. Well before school. So 5 o'clock in the morning, he'd pick me up and take me to the pool. It was Brunswick Pool, which was heated, thank goodness. And I'd do all the swimming, all the training, and then he'd drive me home, and then I'd go to school. And I remember in year 6, so swimming sports, it's underage. So the kids I was swimming against were all grade 4 and grade 5.
Yeah.
And because I was a good swimmer, I won.
Yeah.
And I said to my mates, I won that. And they go, yeah, but what do you reckon? They're only grade 4 and 5. Of course you're going to win. But I should have been grade 5.
Yeah, exactly.
So, got no accolades for that.
No.
Yeah. So, but what I was getting at was, so from prep on, I was now 1 year ahead of where I would have been if I had have stayed where I was.
Yeah.
And then if I'd have stayed in prep, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you.
Yeah.
I got to high school, went all the way through high school, decided to become a teacher, went to teachers college. And that was the last year of what they call the TPTC, the Trained Primary Teacher Certificate, which was only 2 years.
Okay.
2 years. The year after, they brought in it was a different one, Diploma of Education, which was 3 years.
Yeah.
The same course, by the way, the same thing, but they just expanded it over 3 years. Wonderful.
Yeah.
So if I'd have stayed in my right grade, I would have got to Teachers College 1 year later and then done a 3-year course.
Yeah.
So I would have got out of Teachers College when I was 21. I got out of it when I was 19. So I would have then been 2 years behind my current timeline if I'd have stayed in prep. So all the schools I went to, all the people I met my first wife up near Mildura because I applied for a school up there.
Yep.
All of that would have changed completely. I would have had I mightn't even become a teacher. I could have, become something else
100%.
because of that one little change or major change when I was in prep.
Yeah.
So just slide indoors. You think about yourself. There are things that have happened that if you had gone on a different path, where would you be?
Yeah, 100%. It's mind-blowing the amount of cascading carry-on effects of just that one tiny little thing. Like you say, it's a sliding door moment that just has an ongoing effect on the rest of your life, literally.
And we don't even know. I mean, I talk about the example of you're in the supermarket. This is just a minor example, but it works. And you've got a trolley full of shopping. And a little old lady comes up behind you with 2 items. I won't do that again. And you think, oh, okay, you go in front of me because you've only got 2 items. I've got a whole trolley. You're being nice. So you let them go in front. And being a little old lady, she takes forever to get her purse out, and then she can't remember her code for her card, and she potters around, and finally she pays up and moves on. But you're now 3 or 4 minutes behind where you would have been if you hadn't have let her go through. If you just kept going and left her behind you, you would have been finished 4 or 5 minutes earlier. which you think, well, that's nothing, that's a minor thing. But 5 minutes earlier, an unlicensed driver, high on drugs, out on bail, went straight through the crossroad where you would have been with your car at that very point in time. He would have smashed into you. Life is either very, very badly damaged or it's all over. But you never know that.
And you'll never know. You would,
No.
100%.
So there are so many of these things that happen and you never know about it.
Yeah. People that decided to turn left or turn right, people that were about to leave home and, I forgot my wallet, I forgot my phone or whatever, turned around, went back in. They will never know, but like you say, that accident that they may have avoided or,
that's right.
Someone that they ended up meeting because they were there 3 or 4 minutes later than what they would have been, that again, you wouldn't have met that person otherwise. And they could end up being your best friend or end up being a, wife, husband, partner. It's bizarre, and you'll never know, but it's just one of those things that the changes, it's kind of that the concept of the multiverse they talk about, where there's literally an infinite number of options of the life as we know it, based on alternatives that could have happened in each and every second along the way,
Well, I met Sharon just through that sort of thing. I teach guitar, and many years ago, I thought I'll go to the community house and just see if they need somebody there to run guitar classes. So I went along, and Sharon was the assistant manager there at the time. And the manager there, I went and spoke to her and asked if, they were interested in running a guitar course, a guitar class. And she said, no, we don't care about that sort of thing here. I said, oh, fair enough. And as I was leaving, Sharon had sort of overheard a little bit from her office, and she popped out and said, oh, excuse me, sir, what was that you're after? And I explained to her about teaching guitar. And she said, no, I think that would be a good idea. And she went back and spoke to the actual manager and said, no, I think we should do that. And she said, oh, fair enough, whatever.
Wow.
So that's how I met Sharon, that very point. Now, if she'd have stayed in her office and not wandered out to see what I wanted, I would have walked out that door and that was it.
Wow. It's amazing.
Sliding doors.
Yeah, 100%. Of course, Sharon Handley, our guest from last week, who shall forever be known as #003, herself being #004.
Yeah, look, Craig, just on that, Craig, I was hoping to wait a few more and become #007.
I know. Look, it's going to be a highly coveted position.
Yeah. Yes. Anyway, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, but quite the power couple that you both are too. You both.
We refer to ourselves as a power couple.
Oh, definitely. All jokes aside, you guys really are. Like, both professionally and personally, you complement each other. You work so well together. You bring out the very best in each other. From what I can see, you really are a power couple in every definition of the term.
I won't talk too much about Myers-Briggs, but I'm a big fan of Myers-Briggs. But Sharon and I are the complete opposite in every category. I tell people, where I'm strong, she's weak. And where she's weak, I'm strong.
Yeah. The very definition of a successful couple right there.
No. Did you hear what I said?
Yes.
Good. You want us to play
like I say, it's the very definition of a successful couple right there.
Anyway, I wanted also to just, I'll talk about writing at some stage as well, if you've got time for that. But
we've got all the time in the world, so yeah, definitely.
I've been married 3 times, and my first wife was very active, very sporting, and that's what attracted me to her there. She was a top netball player, top basketball player, a #1 squash player, very good at whatever sport she took up. And because at that age I was very sporting, that that's what attracted me to her. The thing about marriages and couples is quite often you're on a different path, but at some point your paths cross over and interact. And at that point in time, you think, yeah, we've got a lot in common. We're very similar because our paths are very similar, but the direction of both paths are actually going to move away from each other. And you just happen to be in the point where you're intertwined or crossing over.
At that time.
And we gradually grew apart, and we no longer had the same interest and feelings that were there initially. And being true to my own nature, I thought, well, okay, that's it. We just have to say, that's it, stop, let's move on, which is what I did. Wasn't easy, by the way, it never is, but you need to be strong within yourself.
Yeah.
Because again, I thought to remain together with this person now for the rest of my life would not be good for me and wouldn't be good for her. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Moved on.
Yeah.
Then my second wife was very musical, very creative from a musical point of view. She was very, very talented as a singer. And she was, that attracted me to her because at that stage I was becoming more, well, not really musical, but creative. I was looking at writing and doing those sort of things. And the creative aspect of her life then attracted me to her. And then I'll talk about music a bit later if we get time. But then again, our paths were intertwined, but again, they moved apart.
Yeah.
And I moved on to the final stage in my life, which is the spiritual side. And Sharon's very spiritual. And that, again, attracted me to her, the spiritual side of things. Because something happened to me when I was with my second wife, if you've got time for that story.
Yeah, please.
Because the question is, do you believe in life after death?
I do, yes.
You've got examples or?
No, it's more a case of it's just what I believe, not so much that I have proof or evidence of it. It's more a case of, sometimes you have to believe it to see it rather than you have to see it to believe it.
It is, but something happened to me where now I know that there is something beyond our current physical side.
Wow.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And this happened to you personally?
Well, there's a lady called Deb Weber. She's a spiritualist, and she talks to dead people when people have passed over. She'll be able to bring them up and talk to them. And Glenda, my second wife, was very much into that side of things as well. She used to meditate with candles and very interested. And just to go back a little bit, one of my ancestors on the Dutch side, my great aunt, was a medium. She used to go into a trance, and strange people would talk through her. And then when she came out of the trance, she had no idea of what had happened.
Yeah, wow.
My father told me about her. He said when he was in the Navy, he was in the Dutch Merchant Marine, he and a couple of his sailor buddies went round to my aunt's house. And one of his buddies was rubbishing the fact that my aunt was a spiritualist. Not rudely, I suppose, but just being a bit derogatory.
Yeah.
And she had an old wooden table, had 3 legs and a screw top, sort of very, very old fashioned. And she said to the 3 men, "You wind this table on as tight as you possibly can," which they all did. Round they went, wound it on. That was it. And she said, "Right, now you put your fingertips on the table," which they did. And she focused her mind, and the table began to slowly unscrew. So my father thought, well, there's something there. So when he told me that story, I thought, I wonder if I've actually inherited any of her abilities, because it's a direct line almost.
Yeah.
So in my 20s, I began to hold seances. I could actually focus my mind in a way that I can't describe.
Wow.
Because I don't know how I'd do it. But I would call up spirits to come to the seance, and they would come. And I was talking about that to my family one day, and they were rubbishing me. Come on, that's just, people are pushing the glass, that doesn't actually happen. Yeah. And I said, right, let's do one. Let's hold a seance right here in the kitchen table right now. So we cut up some cards with the alphabet and yes and no, all those sort of things. We got a glass in the middle, and for effect, we put a candle on top and lit the candle, turned off the lights, whatever. Now, my father said, no, he was watching TV, so he wasn't in the room. So I called up some spirits with my mind, and they appeared. We're asking questions. The glass is moving around. And my sister said to the spirit, what was the name of the lady that my dad went out with before he met Mum? And it came up I-V-Y, Ivy. And my sister said to Mum, who's Ivy? She said, never heard of Ivy. I don't know any Ivy. And my dad came out for a drink. And my sister said to my dad, who's Ivy? Who's this Ivy you're going out with? And he says, Ivy? Only Ivy I ever knew was the one I was going out with before I met your mum. Now, wow. He wasn't in the room. Nobody else in the room had that knowledge.
Wow.
So I thought, oh, okay, there's something in this sort of seance business. But then shortly after that, a lady told me that what I was doing was very dangerous because I didn't know what I was doing, which was clear. I didn't know what I was doing. She said I was leaving myself open for all sorts of bad manifestations that could come, through from the other side.
What do they call that? The Master's Apprentice.
Oh, there you go. Could be.
The famous story.
So I stopped doing seances, but I had that ability, just recall, that I could call up the spirits when I wanted to. So Deb Webber came to Shepparton to talk to dead people. And it was held at the Shepparton RSL, I shouldn't say Shep, at the Shepparton RSL. And there would have been a couple of hundred people in the big auditorium they had there. So I've gone along with my wife, Glenda, and we're sitting there and Deb's going through the routine. Is there a David? I want to talk. I got a David, whatever. We'd been there about an hour and I was bored. And if I'm bored, I'm dangerous. I can't help it.
Not in a good way.
So I thought, wouldn't it be great if Deb came over and spoke to Glenda? That's why we're here for, surely, So I focused my mind as I used to, and I called up the spirits in the room. I commanded them, which maybe I shouldn't have done, but I commanded them to get Deb to come and talk to Glenda. And when I refocus, because when I focus, the outside world just disappears. And I'm in my internal world. When I came back into the room, it was all dead quiet.
Wow.
And I said to Glenda, what's going on? And she said, didn't you hear? Deb's not happy. She said, somebody in the room is channeling.
Oh, wow.
I think I know who that was. I didn't mention that. I didn't say it. But then Deb's gone, oh, hang on. Oh, I've got a couple of spirits here who are most insistent that I come and talk to this lady. Truly, she came over to Glenda and said, there are two spirits who are saying, I have to come and talk to you. Now, how could that have happened?
Yeah.
If I hadn't have actually made contact with the outside, the other realm, who then brought Deb over to talk to Glenda. And then Deb just said, oh, this is most unusual. That's all they wanted. That was it, because that's all I told them to do.
Yeah.
So Deb and Glenda had a bit of a chat about nothing much. Then Deb's gone back looking for, is there a Harold in the room or whatever? But that happened. Wow. Now, how could that have happened if there wasn't something there?
Yeah. Wow. And what was your reaction to that at the time? Like, did that...
Oh, great. No, I felt very pleased with what I'd done. But when I told Glenda about it on the way home, she was furious because I'd embarrassed her. I'd embarrassed Deb. She said, "Oh, you like the heckler who thinks they're more important than the comedian." I thought, I don't care. I know that there's something beyond our current plane, our current realm.
Were you surprised that it happened? Did you feel vindicated, or you already knew that was?
I knew.
Yeah.
Because I'd done it before. I was not surprised. I was pleased, mind you.
Yeah.
But I have another story, because people believe things all the time that actually aren't real. And I'll give you the story. I'll give you the story that people believe now that is not real.
Yeah.
It's when I was at Unilever. And I was playing in a band with my wife. We were a duo. She did all the singing. I wasn't allowed to sing for some reason, I don't know. But I just played the keyboard and the guitar. And we had a gig just off the Hume Highway at Wandong. It was an old hotel that had been converted into a reception centre. And we were playing there for a group that had employed us. We went there early to set up. And inside the building, the pillars weren't brick or concrete. They were tree trunks. There were like a half a dozen tree trunks up and down the middle of this big hall supporting the roof.
Okay.
It's most unusual. And the lady there was all dressed in black, and she had a lot of cats. She was a cat lady. And she was chatting to us, where you're from, etc. And we said, "Oh, Tatura." And she said, "Oh, that's most interesting." She said, an Indian fella just called in yesterday. The passenger in his car had to go to the toilet urgently. She was in a bit of trouble, so they called in here. And he said he's going to Unilever in Tatura to take up a new position, in the factory there. I thought, oh, wonderful, and didn't think any more about it. On Monday, it was announced that we were having a morning tea to welcome the new R&D person to the factory. So we've all gone along to morning tea, cupcakes and whatever. And the fellow's name was Nitin. So of course they called him Needle, which is very, they could have been more creative, but no, Nitin. So Nitin made a bit of a speech. Then he was being introduced to all our different groups around the room. And just before he came to my group, for some reason, the thought occurred to me. Don't know where it came from. Most of my thoughts just come to me without me thinking about them. As he shook my hand, I jumped back as if, whoa. And they're going, what?
Epiphany.
They're all going, what? I said, I just had a vision. What? I had a vision. I said, when I shook Nitin's hand, for some reason, I just saw this big room. And in the middle of the room, there are all these trees. I don't know why there were trees in the middle of the room, but I saw these trees. And there was a lady, an old lady, dressed in black. And she had cats. There were cats everywhere. It's just in my vision. I said, I had a great aunt, she used to have, visions. I think, maybe. And they will go, Nitin's manager's going, come on, John, stop mucking around. What are you doing? Because I had a bit of a reputation, I'm sorry to say. What are you doing? Stop mucking around. I said, no, I had a vision. And Nitin, of course, is going, oh, my God, that's true. He said, that all happened. It all happened. And he said, yeah, there's this lady, there were tree trunks and cats. He said, it's true. It happened. I had to go there because the lady I was with had to go to the toilet. It's all true. And I said to the manager, I said, I've never met Nitin before in my life. This is the first time I've ever met him. How could I possibly have known about tree trunks in a building and cats and ladies in black? How could I have known that? And I gave the, because they're going, I don't know. And I gave the quote from Sherlock Holmes, which I've written down. Sherlock Holmes said, when you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, no matter how improbable, must be the truth. I told him that. Then I walked out.
Dropped the bike and walked out.
How could they disprove that? I must have had a vision. There's no way I could have possibly have known any of that.
Wow. That's
So even though it wasn't true, they believe it was true.
That is gold. And tell me, did you do the big reveal, or did you just leave them hanging with that?
About a few years later, I went and spoke to Nitin and said, what happened. But all the rest, I never mentioned it.
Oh, wow.
They all think I've got this ability. They wouldn't shake hands after.
Yeah, everyone's like, yeah, no, I'm good. I don't want to.
Yeah. The high five, that's enough.
Yeah, I'd prefer not to physically touch you, just in case.
Yeah. Spiritualism.
It touches on a really good point, and something that I personally believe to be the case is that there are charlatans and there are genuine cases. And I think as people, we generally try to go to an all or nothing. It's like it's either 100% true in every case or it's 100% false. It's a scam. But I think the reality, again, coming back to that sort of a balance, is that there are cases where, like whether you're talking about spiritualists or you're talking about mediums or clairvoyance or whatever the specific case is, that there are some genuine cases where people do have genuine abilities. And then there's some absolute charlatans and fraudsters, whether they're just trying to make money out of people or whatever the case. And unfortunately, the people that are genuine, therefore don't get enough recognition because they're tarnished by the charlatans.
I actually also read tarot cards.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about the tarot. Tell us about tarot from the perspective of someone who knows nothing about it other than the word, tarot and tarot cards.
Well, probably going back to your point, probably more than half the tarot readers are charlatans. Who are just there for the money. They read the person in the room. They tell them what they want to hear, or they tell them very ambiguous.
Essentially,
it is.
Yeah.
They tell them ambiguous things that could or could not happen, or that might mention half a dozen things, and if one comes vaguely true, they go, "Oh yeah, I was told that. Yeah, she's really good. That was that's how it should be." I actually went to when I was with Glenda again, we went to a spiritualist who was giving a talk about, spiritualism and all that sort of thing. And I was focusing on what she was saying. I was focusing on her and her words. And after the session, she came up to me and said, "Young man, never come back to one of my readings ever again." She said, "You were giving me a headache. Actual headache." So just my energy was affecting her. So
wow,
strange, isn't it?
Yeah. Was it anything you were aware of at the time?
No, not at all. No, I was just focusing. It's just my focus. I went to somebody else because later on, another time, to have my fortune told, whatever, to see what they would come up with, because they'd be working with Glenda and telling her things, and she seemed to think they were okay. So I went and sat down with this person, and she just said, "I can't take your money." She said, "Your mind is just so busy. I can't read it." And so she said, "No, you have to go." Sure. So there's something going on. But anyway, from a tarot point of view, people who tell the future, they're the ones who are making it up. Because the future's not yet written. We change the future in the present. And you can make 100 different decisions within the next hour that will change your future completely. I mean, through physical harm or through financial decisions or whatever it might be. You don't know the future. When I was doing the seances, I actually spoke to a spirit and said, "Can you tell me the tax load of numbers for next week?" I thought, let's make something out of this. And the spirit said, "Oh, of course, sure, no worries." I said, "What are they?" So it was a lady. She told me. I wrote them all down, went and bought a ticket just with those numbers in it, waited for a week. Not one number came up. Nothing. So in a seance after that, I said, "Can you tell the future?" And they said, "No, can't tell the future. Not yet written."
Yeah.
So the tarot readers who talk about the future, they're the ones who are just after the money. I do tarot in a different way. For some reason, tarot interacts with your subconscious. So I always tell people, if you've got a decision or a question that you want to know the answer to, bring that along. And through the use of the cards and through me talking to you, you will come to the answer. You'll find out what it is that you want to know, what decision you need to make.
Yeah.
And that has worked so well over time. But you have to have an exact question. The more rambling the question, then the more inexact the answer.
Yeah. Okay.
So, for example, if you've got a question that you would like to ask if I was a tarot reader, what would it be? What's something you want to know that you don't know the answer to?
That's a really good question.
If you're saying, will I be a successful podcaster? We don't know. That's a very ambiguous sort of question. It's got to be more exact.
Okay. So I guess, just to pull an example out of thin air, specifically, will or would there be a 100th episode of the podcast, of the show?
I can say yes, but I'm only guessing, and the cards couldn't tell you either. That's just too open-ended, and we're talking about the future.
Yeah. And again, you might say yes, and that might have been the case, but then I could intentionally stop the podcast and never do another one before you've set the future.
Yeah, I failed.
Yeah.
But so have you.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, no, they've got to be very exact. A lot of it is to do with a yes or no type of decision. I had a lady once came, and she was in two minds about whether she wanted to continue a relationship with this person.
Mm-hmm.
Should I or should I not? Now, that's a fairly exact question, yes or no. So through the cards and whatever, and me talking and asking questions and whatever, she already knew the answer.
Yeah.
Subconsciously, she knew the answer. And when it came out that it was break this off, she said, "Yeah, that's what I was thinking." She already knew it.
Yeah.
But the tarot cards bring out what we're still in our subconscious that we're repressing or suppressing. It's there. We just don't want to actually face it.
Yeah.
So that's how I use tarot.
Yeah, that's I was going to say. And so do you see your role, therefore, going back to that example where you're actually helping to get to that answer that they pretty much already know?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's how it is.
Yeah.
The cards go through, the first card is the past in regard to the question, all right? Talking about the past. And whatever card comes up, we'll talk about that. Could be a bad card, a good card. Then we talk about hidden influences in your life, things that are happening that you're not aware of, or maybe you're sort of semi-aware of.
Mm-hmm.
Talks about the present, what is happening in the present. Then we talk about what are your weaknesses, what are the things that you need to work on in order to actually become maybe a better person or more in control of your life. Then it could be what are your strengths, things that you're very good at. And then there are two cards that I end up with. One is, this is the outcome to your question. And the final card is one that I pick, because normally everybody picks their own cards. So their energy will choose the card. And I pick a card. And I tell them, this card has got nothing to do with your question, but this is a card that is important for your future that you need to be aware of. Do you know about spirit guides?
Somewhat, yeah. I'm familiar with the concept.
Yeah, you can either believe in them or not believe in them. But I have spirit guides and I know them. I have an ability to see other people's spirit guides. I don't talk about it very much because it's an uncomfortable thing, and most people think, oh, that's just, you're a lunatic or whatever. But in a tarot reading, my spirit guides are talking to the other person's spirit guides, because those spirit guides know the answer. They know what is happening.
Yeah.
So they will talk to my guides, who will talk to me, I will talk to her. It's called the golden triangle.
Right.
So there's a rotation going on between the outside realm and our current inside realm. So my spirit guides will help me to ask the right question and to see where she should be going because of what her spirit guides have told mine.
Okay. So when you say a triangle, it's like our realm to that realm and then back to us kind of thing.
Yes, it is. Yes.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Your spirit guides are there. Everybody has 3, maybe 4, sometimes 5. But they will only help if you ask. And we often call it a gut feel. I've got this gut feel, I don't know where it's coming from. It's your guides trying to knock on your head going, this is what you must be doing. My guides, they just sit in the background drinking coffee and reading the paper because I hardly ever need them. They're happy when I've got a tarot card session because all of a sudden they're being used.
Because they're like, okay, here we go. We're on.
We're in. Because I don't need their help. I'm quite happy with my own decision making. But every now and then when I do, then I will ask. So then they go, okay, cups down, boys, he wants us. So, they come in and we have a bit of a chat. You've done meditation?
I've dabbled with it a little. It's not something I've really done regularly or done a lot of, no.
Yeah, I do meditate a little bit, nowhere near as much as I should.
Yeah.
My mind is very, very active and I have trouble making it quiet. But when I do meditate properly, I always meet this old man on a bench. He's just sitting there, just waiting for me, dressed in white with a beard. So I just sit down next to him in the meditation and we talk. And he gives me advice. Don't know where it comes from. Is it my brain just making it up or is it actually from the spirit world? And then I think, well, okay, thank you for that. And he always says, it's been too long. Where have you been? And I think, well, I'm busy.
Busy.
Yeah, so in meditations is always there. Always there.
Wow.
Somebody said it could be your future self sitting there waiting to talk to you.
Okay.
So who knows?
Yeah, wow.
And when I see the spirit guides that other people have, is it just my brain, my mind making it up, or am I actually aware of them? See, I can. Yeah, you got 3, 4. You got 4. I can see 4.
Guides.
4. Yeah. They're there to help you. They're there because a couple have been assigned to you right from the get-go. They've always been with you right through. Others come and go as you require them. Right. And every now and then you will get a guide. If you reach the high level within yourself, then the universe will send a younger guide normally, who died early or hasn't been very successful when they were alive, to learn from you.
Wow. Okay.
So that when they're reborn in a future time, they will go back with more understanding, more knowledge, and they won't make the same mistakes that they made in their first life, or second or third or 15th, whatever it might be.
Isn't that interesting? Because you think of like they're there just to serve you, but
no, but they're there to learn. Some of them are there to learn from you. Most are there to help you, not to serve. Serve's the wrong word. They're there to help. They're there to clarify things. So whenever you get a gut feel, see, my guides are saying now, go bro. Whenever you get a gut feel, that's your guides knocking you on the head. And that's how they talk to you.
Wow.
So that's why your gut feels are normally always correct.
Yeah, 100%. And that's something I think a lesson that I learned very early on in life is to be very instinctual, to listen to that gut, to listen to your instinct, to listen to those feelings. Yeah. But there's a lot of people that don't, that whether they use logic in inverted commas or reason, what's the quote? Pale reason.
You will not find a more logical person. We maybe will, but I'm one of the most logical people on the planet.
Yeah,
very
100%.
very logical.
Yeah.
But one of my feelings, or one of my, it's a belief, I suppose, is what's the point in being intelligent if you never actually use it? And part of being intelligent is the ability to change your mind or to embrace a belief that is different from what you originally had because you've had more information.
Yeah.
So I hope I'm not
I
coming over as being
agree.
supercilious or whatever, but yeah.
No, I 100% agree. And, that is something that I've prided myself on, is that ability to have that openness, not to just go, oh, look, the next thing that comes along, I'm going to believe to be true, but just to go, hey, what if there's another opinion in the room other than my own? Just that kind of know thyself, Socrates thing that I've spoken about previously on the show, just to go, hey, I don't have all the answers. I don't know every fucking thing. I have to be open, and I guess, have that openness to other views and other perspectives, and that I'm not always right,
I mean, we shouldn't be wishy-washy and just changing our mind willy-nilly, but
no.
I've said as well that a sign of lack of intelligence is that you never change your mind.
Yeah. And there's a lot to be said for backing your own beliefs and backing your own opinions too.
Of course. But the moment you get something new that you need to listen to and understand, and then maybe make a change in your beliefs, that should be done. That's a sign of intelligence. You get people who go, I've always believed this all the way through. My dad believed it. My grandfather believed it. We've always believed it in our family. Well, you're not using any intelligence at all. You're just going with what is there. Yeah. I'm not going to pick on religion, but a lot of people just get their beliefs from religion, never question it, and that's it. That's the end of their thinking about beliefs.
Yeah, totally agree. That's probably my biggest criticism of religion too.
Yeah. So,
not to say that I don't believe in, an afterlife or a higher power. It's just that I don't believe that religion is the journey to get there. I've heard the Stairway to Heaven, obviously a famous band, a famous song rather, but it's the description of man using religion to try and build exactly that, the proverbial stairway to heaven.
Oh yeah. I couldn't agree more. And a lot of people just use religion as a crutch as well. They don't have to think; it's done for them.
Yeah, it's a shortcut to thinking.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean it's correct. If you look how religion has changed their beliefs over the years, I looked up the other day because I was thinking about religion. How many religions are there on the planet? Do you know?
It'd be in the hundreds. It'd be at least 100.
10,000.
Wow.
A lot of those are very minor, but there's a group of people who believe in what that religion is telling them.
Yeah.
Now they can't all be correct. I think there's 12, maybe a bit less, major religions in the world.
Okay. Yeah.
But if it was all correct, there'd be one.
Yeah.
and they wouldn't be fighting each other in order to prove that they are the one.
Yeah, to prove my religion's better than your religion.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, someone said it's the opium of the masses.
Yeah, very much so. Well, and and it's clearly been used historically as a way of controlling people, as a way of exerting power over people. Yeah.
Exactly. Why do you think the bishop exists on the chessboard? Power.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Sorry, you're going to say?
It just becomes a way of controlling the masses, of using that power, not for any kind of spiritual benefit, but just as a as a proxy way of governing people, of being the power over people.
Yes. Yeah. Don't upset the apple cart, because if you're a good person and don't protest, you will go to heaven.
Yeah.
And if you do protest and upset the apple cart, you're going to go to hell. So people go, oh, well, I better not upset the apple cart. I better just be a nice person. So they go with the flow.
Yeah. Promises in the afterlife that if you do this, you'll get that. And, that kind of approach to religion. And look, if I very much believe in whatever works for people, whatever works for the individual. Your way may not be my way may not be your way. And, for some people, religion may provide that structure or that comfort that they need. Power to them.
It's very important for people who need the comfort that they have got it. Otherwise, they're lost. They're upset, they're confused, they're lost. Religion gives them a firm basis in what to believe.
Yeah.
So they're happy doing that. It's just not me.
Yeah, I don't believe that the ends necessarily justifies the means, but if it does get them to that place that they need to go and no one gets hurt along the way, what's the harm,
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. And you can believe in it, just don't try and make me believe in it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The problem becomes when they're either trying to convince other people to have that same belief and, then shitting on people for not having that belief, and there's, without naming any specific religion, there are a number of religions that do exactly that, where if you don't believe in this religion and everything that we say that it contains, then that's it. That's the end of you. And then that's been a way that a lot of, especially the major religions, have used to control people. If you don't do this exact thing or have this exact belief or perform this specific ritual, then how dare you? You'll be vanquished to hell for all eternity.
Yeah. I think we should move on.
But look, it's fascinating, and I think it's safe as long as it's a safe discussion as long as you're not singling out any religion. But for me, talking about religion generally, regardless of what that religion is, for me personally, there's an inherent danger in, I guess, following or tying yourself to any one religion. Not to say that I don't have beliefs or that I'm not spiritual or that I don't believe in an afterlife. It's just I don't believe in that stairway to heaven. I don't believe in building my own religion or set of beliefs to get there,
Yeah, I mean, I believe in the 10 Commandments. So I believe in them. They're my beliefs, but I would have had them regardless of whether they were religious beliefs or not.
Yeah.
It's just who you are as a person.
Yeah.
So
yeah, amazing. Back to the guides.
Oh yes.
Were they something that you were aware of? Because I find it fascinating. Were they something that you were aware of, like even as a child, or was it something that you became aware of later in life?
No, later in life. Something I became aware of as a child, which was bit profound for me. I was 12 years old, and I realized one day I will die. As a 12-year-old, it wasn't a tenuous thing. One day I will die. Therefore, I need to do as much with my life as I could, rather than just let it drift by, which has sort of helped. I mean, I don't know how many 12-year-olds have that profound understanding that one day they actually will die.
No.
It's going to happen. It will happen. It will happen to everyone. And I think someone else said, we all have two lives. I think it was Mark Twain.
Okay.
We all have two lives. And our second life begins the day we understand we only have one life.
Right. Wow. That's fascinating.
Hmm.
Do you
remember? Don't waste it.
Was it a specific thing? No, definitely do not waste it. Yeah. And that's a lesson of itself, you know. Do you remember if it was something specifically that made you start to think about that? I mean, look, 12 is that kind of age where we are starting to question and to be curious and to look at things. Was there something specifically that made you look at your own mortality?
No, it just occurred to me.
Wow.
It was just there. You want to hear another saying that I sort of incorporated when I was about 12 years old from my mother, maybe a bit earlier even, because it was something very important that she told me as well. And that has also pretty much directed my whole life. She said, if it is to be, it's up to me.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Nobody else will do it for you. If they do, that's a bonus. But if you want it done, if you want to achieve something, you're the one who's got to have to do it.
Yeah.
Don't wait for somebody to hand it to you.
Yeah.
So all the way through my life, if I want to achieve something, I know there's only one person who's going to be doing it. That's me.
Exactly. Yeah. I heard somebody talking about this exact point in reference to, you know, The Secret. And The Secret works for some people, and there are elements I find in it that do resonate. But it's like you can't will yourself to suddenly grow wings and fly to become Superman. You know, you can fucking manifest that till the cows come home, but you're not going to sprout a red cape or wings and start flying around the place. You can use positivity and belief to move in a direction towards certain things, especially things that are actually can be done, that are achievable, you know, that are realistic. But it's kind of that thing of, it's not to say that we don't have a destiny, that there's not a certain amount of fate, not that it's necessarily predetermined, but unless we meet things halfway, unless we actually step in that direction, you know, what's that famous saying that, what is it? Opportunity. What's the saying? Opportunity is where preparedness meets chance, or there's a saying, people will know the saying, but there's a saying, you know, you actually have to step in that direction. Things aren't just going to magically happen. It's not like The Secret where you can just go, oh my God, I'm just going to, you know, will myself to fly, or whatever the case may be, and it's going to happen. You actually have to be a willing participant in moving in that direction and making that thing happen as well. You have to meet, you know.
I understand what you're saying, but I think there's another component to that, and that's energy. We all have a certain energy, and it's hard to explain or define. You can meet somebody for the very first time and you can like that person straight away. There's something about that person's energy that interacts with your energy, and you get on really well. And there are other people, the moment you meet them, you go, oh, no, don't like that person. And there's no reason for it.
No.
But their energy is wrong according to your energy.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at The Secret, people often take it too far, which is what you were saying.
Too literal.
Well, there's somebody I knew who read the book and they began to manifest a BMW in the driveway. Well, it never turned up. Surprise. But what they should be looking at is, okay, what you focus on, the more you focus on something, that's what you get. There's a saying about focus and what you want to achieve as well. But we have an energy. And if you put your energy out there, you want to achieve something and focus on that and work toward it. You have to do the work. It won't just happen by itself. The energy will then interact with the universe, and the universe will then help to provide more of what you're looking for. But it's very important that you also have to be involved in the process. It just won't happen by itself. You've got to put yourself out there. There was I think, Jerry Seinfeld.
I was just thinking exactly that, which you and I have spoken about before. I didn't mean to jump in, but I was just thinking exactly the same thing. The famous Jerry Seinfeld
you can tell.
story.
You can tell the story.
No, you tell it. No.
Well, Jerry Seinfeld held a big conference. He was the main speaker for a big conference on how to be successful. And people paid a lot of money to get a ticket, and they had, pre-speakers and whatever to warm up the audience, before Jerry came on.
Madison Square Garden.
Was it?
Yeah, Madison Square Garden sold out. Yep.
So these people have spent a lot of money. They're there, they've turned up, whatever, done all the speakers have done their bit. And here's Jerry clapping and cheering and whatever, and he walks out onto the stage and he says, the secret to being successful, do the work. And just walked off again. They go, what? Do the work. It's not going to happen magically by itself. So whether people complained or not, I don't know, but that is the secret. Do the work.
Yeah.
Otherwise, 100%. Forget it.
Yeah, that's right.
Was that how you would have told it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, apparently there was the reaction was, it's Jerry Seinfeld, so it's a bit, and he's going to walk back out on stage, and it took about 10 minutes before people went, I don't think he's coming back. I think that was actually it.
Do the work.
Yeah.
So the secret's all very fine, but you've got to do the work. But the secret is to focus on what you want to achieve, which is what I've always done. Once I get a goal, that's what I focus on. So
100%, yeah. And I was going to say, and that links back to the very start of our conversation of setting that clear goal and then setting out a roadmap on exactly how to get there. And look, it may not play out exactly that way. There may be certain obstacles that pop up but having that idea of where you want to go and then some kind of a roadmap on exactly how to get there. That's, that in itself is the secret.
Yep. Planning.
And are there elements of luck or chance along the way? Sure. And again, that comes back to that. I think the quote is something along the lines of success is where opportunity meets preparedness or something along that way. So, again, it is that, the goal, the roadmap on how to get there. And then that small amount of luck or chance, it meets you along the way.
I agree. Yeah, completely. But quite often you make your own luck.
Yeah.
I mean, when I quit teaching, that ad was the only time ever in that 2-week period. If I hadn't have quit, if I have procrastinated, I wouldn't have seen the ad. I wouldn't have applied. I wouldn't have got the job. Who knows where I could have ended up. But I made my own luck to a degree because I just made the decision and then did it. Part of, the old Nike saying, just do it. I think it's Nike.
Yeah.
I've always believed in that. Just do it. When Sharon will say, what about whatever? And I say, look, just do it. What's going to happen? What's the worst thing can happen?
Yeah.
Just do it.
And that's, I think, half of the success of that slogan is that it is so simple, but it is so true and resonates so well with everybody. Simplest things in life are often the best. It's such a simple but true thing that sometimes you need to just do it. Coming back to that action and doing the work. Just do the work. Just do it. Just do the work. It's the same thing.
one of the things I've also always believed in is if you can do it, I can do it. Whatever anybody else has ever done, if it's within my path, within my zone, if you can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
Many years ago, my brother took up skydiving. He was never into football and cricket and whatever, but took up skydiving. I thought, what the hell? If he can do it, I can do it. So I went along, did the training. Had to go to a lecture, first of all, where they explained if we die, it's our fault. Fair enough. Okay.
Sign the waiver.
Yeah, we had to sign a waiver because in those days, there was no tandem jumping.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You jump by yourself. No tandem jumping. So we had to practice. We got to the airfield, had to stand up on a box and jump off and do a roll. That's how you land, fellas. Okay, we're fine now. And I went into where they were packing the parachutes in a big shed, had all the strings lined up, or the ropes, whatever, lined up, and they're packing them. And they're laughing and joking. And I think, come on, fellas, focus. This could be my parachute you're packing. So anyway, so they had a rule. Once you get in the plane and go up, the only way out is through the door.
Is to jump.
We would not land with you in the plane.
Wow.
But back in those days too, you didn't jump and then have to pull your ripcord. They had a static line. Like what you see. Yeah, what you see, all the troops, they're lined up jumping out of the plane. They all attached to a static line.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had that. So got in the plane. There were 4 or 5 of us, and it was my turn. Had to get out onto stand on the wheel. They locked the wheel, hang on to the strut of the wing. And when the instructor went like that, you had to let go and make your big arch, and away you go. So did a couple of those, a couple of jumps. But one of the things I remember is prior to the jump, there was a lady with a red top on. And she was, blah, blah. I'm going to become an instructor. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. This is great. I'm going to be one of the, best skydiving people around. So she went up in the next flight, and 4 people jumped out, and she hadn't appeared yet. And finally, she's out there hanging on to the strut, and nothing's happening. So then they've taken the lock off the wheel, and so she's sort of slipped and still hanging on. They're shaking the plane, the wings and whatever, to shake her loose. Finally, she let go, screaming from about 6,000 feet. You could hear her all the way until the parachute opened. Finally landed, and she came over and said, "Oh, that was great. That was wonderful. I can't wait to do that again." And the instructor said, "Not with us, lady."
No. That's your first and only jump with us.
That's right. Yep. So yeah.
Wow. Amazing.
So that was just a matter of just do it. I can do it.
Yeah.
If he can do it, I can do it. So that was fun.
Yeah.
I only did a half a dozen. And I thought, that's it. I've tempted fate, so I know I can do it.
You've played the odds and rolled the dice.
Yes.
And been there,
After
done
that,
that.
I thought,
Now,
no,
back T-shirt, worn it
Back
out.
to football and cricket. Yeah.
Are you up for a quick break there?
Okay, go for it.
All right, let's do it. Cool. We'll be back.
Okay.
There's something that I've often thought about you, like prior to our conversation today, but just
You're
during
going
the break.
you're going to mention to the world, are you? What you thought about
definitely.
me?
It's all good though. But it just struck me in the break, just reflecting on our conversation today, that one of the things that makes you so interesting is that you are not so much a contradiction, but you are a meeting of points where, for example, you are a very intellectual person, very, very logical, very methodical, and yet that intersects with your spiritual side, your philosophical side, it's quite common for people to excel in a certain area, whether they are very spiritual or very intellectual or very practical, very hands-on. But you are one of those people, it reminds me a bit of my own dad. He's very much the same, very smart, very intelligent person, but has built houses, can build things, can fix things, is very practical. He has that intersection as well. And it just struck me in the break, and it is something that I have thought about you before, that you are one of those people that does have, you do excel in multiple areas. You're not just very spiritual or very intellectual or very practical. You do excel in kind of all things.
No, it's kind of you to say, but it just sort of happens. I don't go out of my way to, it's just what I believe in, or what feels right, or what the brain thinks I should be doing. Yeah. So,
again, coming back to that, I guess, instinct, and listening to your instinct, and being very aware of who you are and what you're all about.
well, apparently I've got very good guides. So there you go. But that Dutch great aunt I was talking about, she was very, very powerful, and she hangs around. But because she's so powerful, she has to sort of keep a fair distance away from me and the other guides. But she's there to help whenever I need it too. So I'm blessed in that regard.
When you say she has to sort of hang back, why is that?
Because of her power. She will affect the other guides.
Ah, I see. Right.
It's like this white light comes from her. When I look at her, when I see her, she's got this very, very bright white light all around her.
Wow. Gee. And then it's conceivable that you, like you say, the elderly gentleman that you sit down beside with the white beard, is that you? Is that your future self? Or
Yeah,
maybe you could potentially become a guide for someone else one day too.
Yeah.
I was told previously that there is a large, and I don't know if you can see this or not, but there's my guide, or one of my guides, is supposedly a very large, stocky, big, physically big kind of a gentleman with I think it's like a big red beard or a big brown beard, like a big, stocky Highlander kind of a guy. Supposedly, so I was told.
Yeah, I can't see him, but then I'm not with you at the moment physically,
No.
so
Yeah.
it's hard to tell. And the moment you've said that, then that puts that image in my mind anyway.
That's right. Yeah. So then you're looking for that particular thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw a red Indian, but I didn't see the big stocky man with a beard. And the red Indian didn't have a beard. And there was there's like a Pakistani man there as well.
Wow. Okay.
There was like a Scottish lady with an apron also there. A young girl who's there. She's there to learn from you. And there's another one, but he's further back. I can't see him. So yeah.
Fascinating.
Is it real? Is it just my brain making that up? Who knows?
Yeah. Well, and again, it's just that making of it what you will, and being open to interacting with it and to benefiting from it as best you can. It's not something it's like the pushing the string analogy. It's not something you have to control or you have to manipulate or have that control over. It's just something that's there and just is, and you use it as you need to. And you said yourself, your guides are sitting back, reading the paper, waiting for you.
Yep. I know, because I don't need them.
No,
I'm very self-sufficient. So
yeah.
Normally I can resolve all my issues by myself, make my decisions that I'm happy with by myself. But when I can't, that's when I talk to them.
And so when you're doing, for example, when you're doing a tarot reading, it's then using the guides, it's tapping
Yeah.
into that.
Yep. I
Yeah,
open up to
wow.
them. There's a mantra that I go through, that I say beforehand.
Can you share that,
To
or is
open
it
up.
something personal?
I'd have to go and read it. I have to go and look it up. It's just about being part of the universe, and allowing positive energy to flow through me, and have all negative energy just flow into the earth and nourish the earth, and to be kept safe, and to be guided whenever I can't make a decision, for them to step in and help.
Yeah, wow.
That's the basic basis of the mantra, but I'd have to tell it to you exactly. I have to go and read it.
Yeah. No, that's fascinating. Wow. It's very cool. There's just so much that we don't understand. I think we have a tendency, whether it's the influence of society, to see these things as mutually exclusive. It's either like science or spiritualism, but quite often I think it's more the case that they are part of the one. Like anything that we don't understand is magic. If you said to someone 100 years ago or said to someone 500 years ago about a car, let alone a self-driving car or a computer or the internet or AI, this would have been the stuff. Well, even
say to somebody 30 years ago about our current phones.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
the phone
it was Dick
technology,
Tracy.
iPhones, whatever.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was remarkable. Dick Tracy.
30 years ago, it was only in Star Wars, and 50 years ago, it was Dick Tracy. It was all,
Yeah.
and that's kind of in reverse, because I think sometimes we can have scientists that can make these things, but they're not necessarily the people that have come up with the idea. We needed the great storytellers. We needed, George Lucas, or, the people that did Dick Tracy, to come up with the idea of, hey, imagine if you could talk into your watch and communicate with someone. For a scientist to then go, hey, we could probably do this and we could do that. And it happens gradually in steps.
Look at
and
Jules Verne, H.G. Wells, all of those people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Things that once upon a time were just the stuff of fantasy, and, they become. So again, back to that point, the things that may or may not be possible, it may just be things we don't know how to do yet.
That's all it is. And there's so much in the universe that is spiritual, but also connected to science. They're intertwined, but we don't understand it yet.
Yeah.
I just want to talk about writing for a moment, if I can.
Yes, yeah. You have written a book. Give that book a plug.
4 books.
We'll pop it in.
Wow.
Yeah. We'll pop the links down in the comments. Start with your first book.
I should have brought them with me, but I haven't got them here. But the first book I had was an idea I had when I was in Teachers College. Some part of one of the courses we were doing. And the thought occurred to me, we are our memories. We exist entirely through our memories. All your knowledge is something you've learned, it's remembered. There's nothing about you that isn't part of your memory. And if you could transfer that memory from one person to another, if you could wipe out all the memories of the person to be transferred into, and you transferred all the memories into that person, does that person then become you?
Yeah, because that's where
a thought occurred to me. Hey, is it? Or is it memories, do they exist separate to your consciousness? They probably do, but with my thought, it was, okay, why can't we transfer knowledge, transfer memories? So you imagine someone like Einstein, who's on his deathbed, he's got another 2 or 3 weeks to live at the most. If you could then take all of his relevant memories, as I mentioned in the book, you don't want to transfer his time when he was having an affair, whatever, in Paris when he was 21. You want all of his exact knowledge. If you could transfer that into a young scientist on the way up, that scientist then doesn't spend the next 20, 30 years trying to get to the level where Einstein currently is. Overnight, that person has all the knowledge that Einstein had. So I called it memories to die for, because if you had the technology to transfer memories, if you put that into the wrong hands, unscrupulous people, and if that person then became, if you are your memories, then you could live forever. It was just a thought I had. So it sort of resonated with me for quite a while. And when I turned 50, I thought, you know what? If I don't write this book now, it's never going to happen. And I had to go to Sydney for a conference for work. And there was a lady came out of the bookshop at Sydney Airport holding a book. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if somebody came out of the bookshop holding my book?
Yeah,
well, the only way that's going to happen is if I actually sit down and write
do the work.
Do the work. All I had was the idea. Hadn't even started writing it. So I started writing it. And we had a lot of boring meetings at work. I think most companies have all these boring meetings. So and you have to go. So I would sit in the meetings with my notepad and pen, thinking about the next part of dialogue or the next part of the book I had to write, just writing it in my mind. And I would come to that's good. And I'd stop and I'd write it down. Now the person giving the talk or the lecture or the whatever go, oh, John's interested, he's making notes.
He's really into what I've got to say.
So I did a lot of my writing during the meetings. So that was good. And I finally finished it. And it was 370,000 words long. Because I thought, I'll know when I get to the end, because that will be the end. So wrote it, finished it. And you've heard of John Marsden, the author? Mm-hmm. He had a conference, a get-together at his place in the country. Had like a farm. And we had Pan, all the big book publishers in Australia were attending. And we'd already submitted our manuscripts to them, and they would then come back and give us feedback on our manuscript. I thought, great, they're going to love it. They're going to be a star, going to be famous. And the lady said, it's far too long. You meander all over the place. There's no definite theme. Maybe you should think about flower arranging. I thought, that's not what I was expecting to hear. But then I looked at it logically, and that was far too long. My ego had gotten in control of my writing, and I was writing things that, they'll think this is clever, this is a witty thing to have. I had sub-characters, I had subplots, I had things all over the place, winding here, winding there. I was so clever. No, I wasn't. I realized I had to be true to my central theme. So all the subplots, all the sub-characters had to come out. So I went from 370,000 words down to about 250,000. Wow. And the lady had said 150 max. Oh God, they've got another 100 to come out. Yep. So I had to go back and rewrite, re-edit, take stuff out. There's a saying with writing, do not fall in love with your work. Because the moment you fall in love with something, it can never come out. And I had to take things out. So I just kept culling, kept taking things out, kept culling, kept asking, does this contribute to the central theme? No?
Yeah.
Out.
Yeah.
I got it down to 190,000, and that was it. I couldn't take any more out.
Not without actually impacting the story, yeah.
But I got to that point, and I knew that. But what I discovered was that Australian publishers only publish known authors, or they will do a biography of some famous person, autobiography.
Yeah.
So if you're an unknown person in Australia, forget it.
about it. Exactly
So
the same. Exactly the same with filmmaking. Sorry to jump in, but exactly the same
go
with
for it.
filmmaking, both in Australia and internationally. You know, Hollywood's famous for it. That they only want to do the safe thing. They only want to bet on a sure thing. They don't want to take chances on the new or the up and coming or the yet to be discovered. It's become purely a business thing, and it's just all about safe choices. And it means that in both the case of authors and writers and filmmakers, that there's a lot of people that don't get the opportunity for that reason, is that, because they don't have a body of work already, they're not willing to take the chance. It's crazy.
It is. I mean, there's a lot of self-publishing going on now, but that doesn't get to the wider audience. It only gets to wherever you can actually distribute. But anyway, I sent my manuscript overseas. I thought, well, okay, if Australia doesn't want it, maybe England or America, whatever. And finally, a publishing company in America picked it up and said, yeah, we'll publish it, which they did. That's how I've got the book done. Hang on. I thought there was one in that bookcase behind me, but doesn't matter.
I'm fortunate enough to have a signed copy, but I'll pop it in the comments and pop the link in there.
Yeah, I mean, you can still buy it online. Collins still sell it, whatever, but the price has gone up for some reason. But anyway, so yeah, they published it for me, and it sold in England, it sold in India, sold in New Zealand, sold in Australia. Dymocks, all those other book companies did sell it for quite a while, so I can say I'm a published author.
Yeah, 100%.
I actually discovered that I could write without knowing it when I was in, I think, year 8, year 9. They had a poetry competition. I'd never written poetry in my life, but I thought, oh, what the hell, let's give it a go. So I wrote this poem, but it was satire. I'd never heard of satire, but my poem was satirical without me realizing that I was involving satire. And it won the competition. So I thought, well, maybe I can write. And I wrote a poem for our local community paper, the Tatura Bulletin, and I'll talk about that a bit in a moment. And I have it here, just by chance.
What a coincidence. It's one I prepared earlier.
Yeah, it's called The Blind Date. You have to listen very carefully. That's just awesome. So, The Blind Date. She looked in the mirror and studied her face. Not a classic beauty, but an ageless grace. Her mouth was too large for her beautiful smile, and her clear blue eyes showed a soul without guile. They met at the cafe. He said, I hope this is fate, to meet a beautiful woman on a Valentine's date. She thought he was handsome and said, my name's Kay. Perhaps we should order. I haven't eaten all day. He waved to the waiter and said, I'm Jim Cole. I work in accounting. It's a challenging role. They discovered each other as the blind date progressed. To enjoy such a night, they felt they were blessed. He thought Kay was spirited and unbridled fun, and dared to believe that she was the one. However, for Kay, one thing was quite plain. When this night ended, she wouldn't see him again. When your mouth is quite large, then one obvious goal is to never be known as Mrs. K. Cole.
That's gold. The best part about it is you don't see it until the final line.
That's right.
How old were you when you wrote that, do you reckon?
This one here?
Yeah.
1 year ago.
Oh, okay. Right. Wow.
Oh, yeah. Because when I had my book published, I just retired as well. And our local community paper, the Tatura Bulletin, invited me along to be part of the committee, thinking maybe my writing skills could be useful for them. But it was a very bland paper back in those days. It was 16 pages, black and white, newspaper type of paper.
Yep.
And they just talked about school issues and what was happening at the church and the local
Very
flower
dry.
show, which meant that most people, when it turned up in their letterbox, would just chuck it in the bin. I mean, what they did back then was everybody in Tatura and surrounding areas got a copy for free. So it was all paid for by advertising.
Yeah.
So the more advertisers you could attract, then the more you could put into your paper. But because nobody was that interested in what they were talking about, not many people advertised in it. And the first year I was there, the president had health issues and decided that she was going to resign, retire, move away, go live in Shepparton. So they asked me to become president for some reason, who knows. These things just sort of always happen. So I said, well, if I take over, then we'll do things my way. That's how I operate as well.
Yeah.
So, we're fine. You can be president, do things your way. So I said, first of all, we're going to have more things in the paper that people who don't have children at school, who don't go to church, whatever, are going to find interesting.
Yeah.
So I implemented a short story competition and had people send their stories in, and if they were appropriate, we would publish them.
Yeah.
Which we did, and that attracted more attention. And
I was going to say, and that exact model is today what they know as the attention economy. It's like bringing the attention, by having that attention, that brings the audience, and that's what allows it to keep going.
Yeah. So we had 3 stories that were publishable, and after the third one was published, I thought, well, they went well. Maybe I should start writing some. So I started writing my short stories, which I then used to do like one every month or two. And I made up word searches and Sudokus, and I put in quizzes, and I put in all sorts of things that would be interesting to people. Ma Merle appeared. She was a crotchety old lady who complained about everything, but always thought that she was perfect. I won't tell you who Ma Merle is, but she lives with me. And people loved Ma Merle for some reason. I was working at the community house, and they had the Italian ladies used to go there for bingo. And I was in there one day just walking through their room, and they said, John, excuse my Italian accent, but I'm going to do it anyway. Hey, John. I said, yeah, ciao. See, I know a bit of Italian. John, this Amara Merle. We go to the coffee shop. We never ever see the Amara Merle. Where is this Amara Merle? I said, well, she's there. You're just not looking hard enough. Or you go there when she's not there, but she's around.
She's around.
We want to talk to Mara Merle. Yeah, so Mara Merle's been going for 10 years now. I got involved with the Tatura, with the bulletin, president for the last 10 years. I just resigned recently because we were thinking about moving north, but we've changed their mind on that one. But I'm happy to remain resigned because of other things I want to do and work on. But I still do a lot of writing for the bulletin, and still do all my quizzes and different things. But had a poetry competition a couple of years ago, and I thought, well, I'll write a poem, and that was when I wrote.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah,
I must say it's a bit of a delight every time when I see in my inbox pop up John Kay's short stories.
Yeah, well, I have a short story website. They're all on there.
What's the website? We'll pop it in the link anyway. We'll pop the link in the description.
But I'm going to tell you right now so that people can write it down while they're driving. So it's my name, John Kriesfeld. Which Kriesfeld, you can spell John, but Kriesfeld is Kries for Sam, F for Fred, ELD. .substack.com. ituproducer.com, and it's all free. It doesn't cost you anything. People go, oh, it must be a scam. No, it's free. Nothing. My son actually put in a little bit down the bottom when we first set it up. If you like these stories, you can buy John a coffee. But you don't have to. I don't care.
No. But if you like the story, buy John a coffee.
Yeah. Some people do. Most people don't. Doesn't matter. I'm just happy to have the stories out there. So when I'd finished about 20 of the stories, I thought, I'll publish them in a book, a short story book, which I've done. And then I began writing serials. So from month to month, they would carry on. And one of them was about 5 episodes long. So I've got another book coming out with all my serial stories in there. Hasn't been published yet because the fellow who's doing it is drawing pictures for them, and he's got to finish off all the pictures.
Wow, that's.
And then the last one I had was the book called Doing Life, which is all about, sliding doors and swings and roundabouts, and that's just been published. I went into Collins' bookstore in Shepparton yesterday to see if they were interested, and they took a copy and they're going to give it to the buyer. And if the buyer likes it, then they'll put some on the shelves. Yeah, it's entirely up to them.
Great. Yeah, fantastic.
You never know if you don't give it a go.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I'm actually fortunate enough at the moment to be recording the audiobook version.
Yes, you are. How far have you got there, Craig?
Probably about a third of the way through.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's good. And you're enjoying the story?
Yeah, it's great. And like yourself, there's just always a lot going on at once, but, just keep chipping away at it and doing the work.
Doing the work. I actually, when they first published the book, they spelt my name wrong on the cover. And I took it back and said, hey, come on, I'm not Kriesfeld. I'm Kriesfeld. Oh, my God. So they had to republish all the books again, which meant that the books that had the error they took back and they destroyed, but I kept a box of them, about 50. And I've given them all out to friends and family, and I still play tennis on a Monday, social tennis, and I gave out a book to them for nothing because it was spelt wrong. But the feedback from them was great. One old fella who I thought might not like it because he's very churchy, he said he couldn't put it down. So yeah,
I think my observation of your writing, I think something that makes it so successful is that it's you. It's exactly your personality transferred into what you write. So it brings a little bit of you in terms of being quite deep, quite intellectual, but also that mix of humor, that a little bit of a dry sense of humor that you're quite famous for in certain circles. But I think you don't. Circles. Yeah, I think you allow your personality to come through what you write. I think that's one of your secret sources, I guess.
And that's also a problem when I was writing Memories to Die For, because I had like 6 or 7 main type of characters. They couldn't all be me. Only one of them is me.
Yeah.
So all the rest had to be entirely different, completely different to me. So what I would do is I would channel people I knew and become that person whenever I was writing that particular character.
Yes. Yeah.
So that way it worked.
Yeah. And again, that's probably one of the great secrets to success for successful writers, whether they're writing novels or, whether it's a screenplay, is to successfully be able to put you into another character or into another role,
But after a while as well, I noticed the characters become alive. They exist. As long as you've got that book open and you're reading it, they exist. They're there.
Yeah.
It's only when you shut the book that they disappear.
Yeah.
So yeah, as I was writing it, I had to keep in mind who they were, how they would think, how they have thought, what sort of behavior they're going to be having going forward. But as I said, for each of those characters, I had a person in mind who represented that character. And then I would just channel that person in my mind whenever that person was speaking or doing something. So it was no longer me.
Yeah. And I know from the perspective of someone who, as an actor, has played other characters that other people have written, that's another step again. It's one thing to write a book or to write a screenplay, and then the reader is creating the character in their mind. And it may not be exactly the same character there's no way it could be the same character you've created. It's the character they create in their imagination. The next step from that, whether it's a play or a TV show or a movie, is for an actor to give their interpretation of that character as well. And it's always very interesting to see, especially for writers, where they say that they're seeing that character and they're seeing the elements that they had written into the character come alive, but then there's this extra layer that the actor has brought to that role, to that character, that they either didn't see coming, or it is what they saw for the character, but then there's a whole nother layer to it that the actors actually brought to that character as well.
Yeah. And that's very complex.
Yeah.
I mean, how often have you read a book and enjoyed it? Great book. And you see the film and you go, hey, come on, that's rubbish. That's not the book.
Yeah.
Because you interpret that book in your mind, and what you're seeing on the screen is a producer's minimal interpretation of the same book.
Yeah, 100%.
Because they have to leave out so many elements in order to fit it into a timeline.
Yeah. There's a really good example of that with, I've gone blank on his name, the guy that wrote the Reacher series.
Oh, yes, I know him. Yeah.
Famous author.
I've read all of Reacher, and I can't think of it either, but yeah.
Yeah, well, we're going to have to quickly Google it, Jack.
Lee Child.
Lee Child, well done. Look at you. Who needs Google? Exactly that. He originally wrote the books, very successful. People were creating the characters in their mind. Then went to the next step of it becoming a screenplay and being released as a movie. So it was Jack Reacher with Tom Cruise.
Yep.
Massively successful, obviously. Anything that Tom Cruise is involved is.
Yeah, but even though Tom Cruise is nothing like Jack Reacher.
100%, yeah. And this was some of the criticism at the time, is that, Jack Reacher's this giant, big, burly, 6 foot. I think he's in the books, he's 6'6".
Something like that, yep.
Yeah. And, Tom Cruise, obviously, smaller, stockier guy, and massively successful film. Awesome films, loved them. They were massively successful everywhere. Then the next step from that, in recent times, it's been redone as a TV show with the involvement of Lee Childs directly. He even did a small cameo role in the show itself, but he's actively one of the producers, one of the, he's actively involved in the production of the TV series with Alan Rickson, who is actually 6'5", nearly 6'6", is, I believe, at about 260 odd pound at the moment. He's a big boy. He's a big boy. And again, people are connecting with it, especially the hardcore fans of the writer of the original story, because they can see more of what the author originally intended to be the character. Alan Rickson, they feel embodies that character more than what Tom Cruise did. But I mean, look, and hats off to Alan Rickson. It's a great series, but he's paid full homage and full respect to Tom Cruise and said, hey, look, let's take nothing away from Tom Cruise. Without him, this would never have happened. It wouldn't have had the massive success that it's had. It probably wouldn't have had the opportunity to end up as a TV show. And they've made the subtle difference of the movie was Jack Reacher. In the TV series, he's just Reacher. And that's one of kind of his catchphrases, whenever
Is
people
Reacher.
refer to him as Jack
Yeah.
Reacher, he says it's just Reacher. So it's just Reacher, the TV series, compared to Jack Reacher, which was the, in the books and in the movie. But yeah, great example of, how that character evolved from a book to a movie, then to the TV series and the sort of life that took on.
There is a little addendum to that, in that Lee Child's latest Reacher book he wrote with his son. And it's not very good.
Okay.
It lacks the normal Lee Child sort of punch, panache, flow, rhythm. The rhythm isn't there. So I'd say the majority of writing was done by the son. And maybe Lee Child just did an overview or whatever it might be.
Yeah, okay.
But it doesn't have the same.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
that punchiness.
I would never buy another one with both of them on the cover as the writers.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah, wow. Gee.
A lot of authors do that. As they get older, they co-write with somebody. You think you haven't written anything. You've just sort of put your name on the cover.
I see. So if we see one of your books pop up with someone else's name on,
yes,
no, right. Don't buy that one.
Don't buy it. Don't buy it.
Going back to your first book, you mentioned about how you had to cull off some of the words, and then you were kind of looking at the central theme. Using only one word, what would you sum up the theme of that book as?
Mindful.
Mindful. Okay. Explain.
Oh, it makes you think.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Actually, I don't know if you've read that book. Have you read it all the way through?
Yes, I have. Yeah. Some years ago now, but yes.
Yeah. But nobody has ever predicted the ending.
No.
And the ending that I had for the book now, since we've had the pandemic, is so spot on. Because I didn't know about the pandemic when I wrote the book.
No.
But the ending is very, very, you think, well, what the hell, You'd have to read the book in order to understand what I'm saying. But and I won't say any more about it to give it away. Because
no spoiler alerts.
All the people I've spoken to go, I didn't see that coming. So to me, that's a sign of a good book.
Yeah.
When you don't know what's going to happen at the end, but at the same time, it still makes sense.
And isn't that interesting that you wrote that pre-pandemic, and yet I think one of the characteristics that successful writing has is that in a lot of ways the themes are very timeless, so that you can take something that may have been written 10 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, but the themes still play out today and are still very applicable today. Yeah. And I think that book is a classic example of that, where the themes are, in a lot of ways, are even more applicable now than when you possibly wrote the book. Like in terms of where we're at the moment with AI and consciousness. I mean, it has been played out in some movies, the idea of someone's consciousness being put into someone else's body. There was a famous film, I can't think what it was, but there was like a company, and they were taking your consciousness, your soul kind of thing, and putting it into another body. And it was for rich people that were about to die. And
yeah.
I forget what the name of the film was, and then that's that idea. I mean, it was like in Futurama, where they take your brain and put it in the glass jar. You are your thoughts, and you are, coming back. Are you your memories? Are you your thoughts? Are you your consciousness? Are you your soul, that part of you that's not physical? And I think those themes, especially now with AI, and as we move into an era where we may or may not, I mean, where we're finding that point where they're growing human tissue onto microchips. Are we going to see a situation where people are augmented in terms of like they're here. You know, at the moment, it's like a set of goggles where it's like augmented reality, where it's a combination of what you really see and what the goggles are creating. Then does that evolve into becoming a microchip or implants or whatever the next step may be? You know, how far before we see that? You know, I've heard theories of where we could potentially become like a hybrid of, you know, like a cyborg kind of a deal, but it's still
$6
our
million.
conscious. The $6 million man, the cyborgs from Doctor Who, the Cyberman. It's those kind of themes playing out again. You know, like, do we see that happen?
Without saying too much, because I don't want to say too much, but
No.
Artificial memory, could you make artificial memory?
Yeah.
If you understood the process of memory, could you make an artificial memory?
Yeah.
Now, having said that, I won't say any more. Read the book.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. But, you know, these themes are very interesting with where we're at on the very brink. Like we're in the very pioneer days of AI, of artificial intelligence. Will AI develop the ability, you know, to have memories? There's the big discussion, of course, you know, will it develop self-awareness? Will it develop consciousness? Which then is the whole Terminator thing, and, you know, the kind of.
Well, I was discussing that with Sharon just the other day. At what point in time in our evolution did we become self-aware? If you believe in evolution, then at one point in time you go all the way back to amoeba, and the single cells become double cells all the way through, and we became, you know, apes, an ape-like person. Now, to chimpanzees and gorillas, are they self-aware? I'd say not. So at what point in our journey did we become self-aware, and how did that happen? I mean, I don't think my cat is self-aware.
No,
my dog.
No.
They have an awareness of their surroundings, but they don't think about the future, you know. So at what point did we become self-aware, and how did it happen?
Cats and dogs, it's normally when they walk past the mirror and they kind of look, is that me?
Yeah.
But again, they don't really have that full concept of self-awareness.
No. Actually, again, talk about Sharon, I think she mentioned this in her podcast with you. Like 95% of people believe they're self-aware. Yes. But only 15% actually are self-aware.
I was going to say, that was fascinating.
All the people listening now would be going, yeah, but I'm one of those 15%. I'm self-aware.
Yeah.
But you have to understand what self-awareness actually is. So maybe that's the time for another podcast. But the fact that only 15, according to scientific university studies, and therefore they can't be wrong.
Couldn't be wrong.
I mean, the world's going to end in about another, No, it's already ended. I'm sorry.
2012. Yeah, it already passed.
Yeah. But also in 2017, we were told we only had 5 years left before global warming killed us all. So
that's
still
right.
Here. But so self-awareness is a topic just in itself. And it's not for me to talk about.
Yeah. Fascinating though. Yeah. When Sharon was saying that statistic, it's like, wow, you know, I would have imagined it would have been higher, but there you go. Yeah. So when can we expect the next book? Do we have an approximate date in mind? Do you have
Actually, I have another book that I started writing maybe 10 years ago. After the first one was published, the big book, not the small, compendiums, but I thought I need to write one more, but I wanted it to be totally different because the first one was a thriller. Actually, somebody said it was to rival Dan Brown, so I'll take that. But I wanted something completely different. So I thought historical adventure. So I've set it back in the past, and it begins at the Battle of Waterloo. And it just goes on from there. These things happen to our hero all the way through right to the end. So many things happen. So yes, historical adventure. But I've got probably another quarter to finish off writing. I
Okay.
need to find time to do it. I'm very aware that I am aging. I'm very aware that the brain does start to disintegrate as you get older, which is why I thought I'll just go and do this IQ test and just see where I'm at. And where it came out, I was very happy with. So I've got.
Do you wish to
time
reveal
yet.
what that score was?
It said I was gifted.
Well, you knew that.
It came out at 134.
Oh, wow. That's great.
So that's not bad.
Yeah.
Not quite genius. I was a bit disappointed there, but then I knew I wasn't, so it didn't matter. So yeah, I want to
I've
finish
never
that
done
book.
one. I'm not sure exactly what mine is.
I did one way back when I was 21, and it was very high. It was higher than that. So I figure over time, the brain cells have started to diminish, but I was still happy for it to be at that level at my age now.
It's interesting, when I read your first book, if we could only use one word to describe what the underlying theme was, and then I thought of this again when you were discussing about how you had to sort of cut back both the amount of words, but also the amount of themes. The theme that stood out to me most of all the very first time was immortality. If somebody said to me, what is the one central underlying theme that ties the book together, it struck me that it was immortality, which is interesting based on what you just said. And also, when you were saying about the book and how, that there were other themes that sort of had to pop out. Well, that's why I was interested to ask you what you thought the kind of what struck you as one of the central theme of the book was. To me, it's very much immortality, which again ties back to what I was saying about timeless themes and how it's very relevant to today. That idea of our mentality and of evolution, and how does that play out with AI and augmented reality and all of these other things.
And I agree. What you're saying is correct. What I was saying was, what would I like to leave the reader with? And it was a thought.
Yeah. The legacy of the book, perhaps.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. To be very aware of what is going on.
Yeah.
Or what could go on.
Yeah. Fascinating. Well, we'll be very interested.
Because if what I had in the book ever becomes true, then we're pretty much stuffed.
Which again, you have to come back to what your belief system is, to your higher power, what your faith, what your beliefs are, and as to how that all plays out in the bigger scheme of things.
Yeah, but no, not according to my book.
No. So
there's only one ending. If what I got in the book is true, there's only one way it can end.
Yeah. So we'll see whether you're Nostradamus or whether it's purely a work of fiction. Yet to be seen, to be decided.
Yeah. No, time will tell.
Yeah. Well, we very much look forward to seeing the next book come out too. And once I can get it completed, the audiobook version of your book.
No, that'd be good. I would like that to happen.
Yeah, definitely. Just helps it to reach another audience as well. I'll put my hand up and say I'm the first to find it a lot easier to read an audio or to listen to an audio book rather than to actually physically read a copy. It's just, with so much going on in all of our lives at any one time, it makes good, which is the success of podcasts, because while you're driving or doing something at home, you can be listening and you can be doing that at the same time as doing something else, whether you're exercising or driving or whatever the case is. And it's just such an efficient use of time. I find I love audiobooks. Some people don't. Some people can't listen to audiobooks and they prefer the actual book. But for me, the audiobooks are just brilliant.
Oh, it depends on the situation. If I'm driving, on a long distance, an audiobook is great.
Yeah.
But if I want to read for pleasure, then I read. I don't listen.
Yeah. Yeah, no, everyone's different. Horses for courses, for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, we'll make sure that there's links to all of your work, and that people can find access to all of these things and know where to go, for sure. And you've given us the website, so people can already be looking that up as well.
Oh, of course, yeah. I'm expecting to have more people, more traffic.
Yeah, definitely. You and me both.
I think I got 50 at the moment, and I was hoping to get 100, but 50 is halfway there.
Well, everyone, jump on it. We'll put the links in the comments. Jump on and sign up and check it out, and let's get it. Yeah, exactly. Unless they want to buy you a coffee, let's get it up to 100.
Yes, thank you.
Awesome. Anything else you want to touch on before we sign it off?
How much time we got?
All the time in the world, as much as you want to talk.
Can I talk about netball?
Let's do netball. Let's talk about netball.
Netball, because for some reason, I appear to be a good netball coach without really knowing why. It just sort of happened. When I was at Coburg Primary School teaching there, our netball team needed a coach. And nobody put their hand up. So I was looking after grade 5. So I thought, well, I can do that. And there was a fella there who used to coach netball. He was very good. He just didn't have time to coach. So he said he would help me. He would teach me how to coach netball. And he did. He was very good at what he taught me. And I picked up, understood what he was saying. So the first year I coached it, the girls did quite well. But the second year I coached it, they won the Victorian Primary Schools Netball Championship. They beat every other school in the competition. And I thought, wow, that was, amazing. And then I got promoted. I went to a small country school, near Mildura, called Nangelock. There was a school down the road called Calignan, which is Nangelock back to front. And we had, I think, 9 girls in grade 5 and 6. So if you're a girl in grade 5 and 6, you were in the netball team.
Yeah, you made the team.
Yep. So I coached them. And because of what I'd learnt on how to coach, we beat all the other small schools in our competition, beat them comfortably. And I thought, well, I'll just see how good we are. So Redcliffs was a bigger school up the road. So I gave them a call and said, do you mind if I come and give your girls a game of netball? Because we had 80 kids in our school. They had about 300. So I thought that'd be a challenge. So we turned up. We played that first quarter. We were about 8 goals to 2 up. And the netball lady took off all of her girls and put on a brand new team because she was doing us a favor, she thought, by just giving us her seconds and not her first team.
Right.
So, but we still beat them comfortably. It didn't matter. Then I thought, all right, let's keep going. So Mildura Central had 1,500 students, had 4 grade 6 classes. So they had so many girls to pick from. That was just grade 6, not even grade 5 and 6.
Yeah.
So I said to the girls, let's give them a game. We beat them as well. So somehow I have a netball coaching ability. We went to a Lightning Premiership, these same girls, in Swan Hill, and they put us in the 2nd division because of our size. And I said, no, we should be in the top division. Oh, no, you're a small school. You go in the 2nd division. Fine. We played our first game, walloped them. They came and said, no, you should be in the top division, which they put us in.
And you said, you think?
We won. Yeah.
Wow.
We still won. We beat it. We took home the trophy. I went to Mortlake Primary School as principal down there. And so coached the girls netball because I enjoyed doing it. And I had a grade 5 team and a grade 6 team. Coached them together, but grade 5 and grade 6. And we beat the other schools in our area. Then we went to a big one-day tournament in Warrnambool. And so I took down my grade 6 girls to see how they would go. And I took my grade 5 girls down for experience.
Yeah.
And they were in 2 separate halves of the draw. guess who played off in the grand final? My grade 5 girls against my grade 6 girls.
I was going to say this ended up a grade 5 versus grade 6.
What I thought, gee. So what I'd been taught by this fella, what he taught me was really good. And then I hadn't coached. I quit teaching, so I stopped coaching netball. And I hadn't coached netball for about 30 years. And I was tutoring a girl. She was in grade 4 at the time. And when she was in grade 5, she said, she just joined the netball team. And she said, can I show you my netball step? I said, yeah, go for it, which she did. And I said, no, that's wrong, which it was wrong. And I showed her the right way. And at that very point in time, her father came into the room and said, what are you doing? I said, I'm showing her netball step. He said, oh, you know a bit about netball? I said, yeah, a little bit. He said, would you mind coming along and helping the girls because they haven't got a coach?
Wow.
And it turned out the girls in the team, they called themselves the Leftovers. That was their name because the association had picked all the best teams for the top all the best girls for the top team, all the ones after that for the second team, then the leftovers were in the bottom team. And these girls were the leftovers, the dregs. I think they called themselves the dregs.
The dregs.
The dregs.
Classic underdogs.
So I said, I'll coach them, but we've got to train twice a week and we'll do it my way. Because the association had the rule, the girls had to play in all different positions all the time. And I said, no, we play as a team. And the only way to play as a team is if you learn your position, then know how to play in the team within that position.
Yeah.
So, yep, they were okay with that. So I started coaching them. I went and saw their very first game before I started coaching. They did not throw one goal, did not throw a goal. They were hopeless. They were the dregs. So I began working with them, catching, passing, throwing. I said, rule number 1, never ever pass to a girl who's not leading. Rule number 2, whatever I say, you listen. Rule number 3, there's no I in team. End of story. So we began working, began practicing, began playing, and we began winning. They began throwing goals and winning. We came up against the number 2 team, who'd been picked as a number 2 team, the girls who weren't quite in the top team.
Yeah.
And they were thinking, oh, here's an easy win. We beat them 12 goals to 8. They weren't happy. I remember that. And then the teams we went into Shepparton, into the Shepparton comp, which is a much bigger comp. My same girls and the other Tatura teams were there as well. We ended up playing in the grand final. We beat the top Tatura team as well on the way, but we ended up playing the top team in Shepparton who were undefeated. We played them in the grand final and we beat them by 3 goals. The girls were so happy. So for some reason, I can coach netball.
Yeah, wow. Which interests me. Take me through exactly what your mindset was. What was the underlying process behind that?
I knew I could do it. I knew I was capable of making them into a good team. But when I was principal at Talamba Primary School, the girls there had hardly won a game in 3 years. They were always on the bottom of the ladder. So I started coaching them. They lost their first 3 games, but they're getting closer. The 4th game they won, never lost a game after that.
Yeah.
Won the grand final.
Yeah.
So the process I have works.
Yeah.
But part of it is tough love.
Yeah, for sure. It was a success in them being a team, in working as a team.
Team, always team.
Yeah.
You're playing the position is best suited for you that I decide, not the one that you want to play. We can't all be goal attack. So I will look at you, look at your abilities, and some girls are natural defenders. Some are natural attackers. Some are natural runners.
Yeah.
And there's your team straight away.
Yeah.
Your runners always play wing attack, wing defense, center. Your defenders play your defensive positions, and you got your goalies. But I told my goalies, you must throw 50 goals every day without fail. At school, I don't care where, 50 goals. There's no point in all the girls working hard in defence, getting the ball to you, then you miss and they get the ball back. What's the point of that? If you get the ball, you shoot, the ball goes in the goal ring. End of story.
Yeah.
Which they did.
Yeah, I've heard a similar story about Michael Jordan. You know, everyone sort of sees the end result and the massive success that he was at the end. But it was, you know, throwing 1,000 hoops each and every single day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year that no one saw. You know, that was where the true success lied.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, he was gifted. You know, he had a gift. There's no two ways about it. But it was doing the work. It was the hard work behind the scenes that no one saw.
Yeah, but there are a lot of girls who are gifted who never have a chance to show their gift. A lot of people, because they're not trained properly or don't practice properly or whatever it may be.
Yeah, or they're not coached as well. They're not given the.
Yeah. Well, one of the parents asked me to keep working with her girl after the team, after the season had finished, and she's now in the one of the top girls in the chaperone squad for her age, and she's playing in a team now that doesn't lose.
Yeah, gee.
And yet she was one of the dregs. And
so it was the same mindset, the same underlying philosophy and process that you applied, whether it was, you know, the school netball team or a business team at Unilever. It was that same. Yeah.
I'll just finish with one final story, because probably time, people are nodding off now. But when I was at Coburg Primary School, we had a very crowded yard, and it was on a slope. And the school sports day came around. I'd only just sort of started teaching there. And the teachers had been there a while. They got the crossball team and the football team. They coached all of the different sports, you know, the shot put and the high jump and the running. They needed somebody for the tunnel ball team. So I got the tunnel ball boys. And the tunnel ball boys were all the leftovers, all the boys who couldn't run, couldn't jump, couldn't throw. They had to put them somewhere. So I had the under 11, under 12, under 13 boys. And Coburg at the time was made up of a lot of Greeks and Turks and Italians, and of course Australians, a combination.
Yep.
It's had all these leftovers. Now, the previous person who coached them in the past, because we're on a slope, he had them tunneling downhill. I thought, no, stuff that. We're going to tunnel up the hill.
Yes.
So they had to work a lot harder, tunnel up the hill.
Yeah.
And I focused on the delivery. You should never have to touch the ball on the way. If you've got to touch the ball on the way, you're going to slow it down, you're going to divert it. So we practiced delivery. We could never actually pick up the ball and run to the finish line because the schoolyard wasn't big enough. So we worked on that. Came the school sports day. I just hoped that the boys would make it, not come last. They'd be good. Under 11s went first and they won. I thought, great. Under 12s went next, they won. Under 13s went, they won. So all three teams were now in the regional sports. And that assembly on the Monday, it was, okay, who got a blue ribbon? And all my tunnel ball boys put their hand up, bit of praise and whatever, because most of these boys had never won a thing in their life. And now they're being praised at school assembly for winning the tunnel ball. So off we go to regional sports. Under 11s went first, they won. Under 12s went, they won. Under 13s, they won. So now we're off to the regional, the end of the sports where each region has its winners to find out who are the Victorian champions. And my three tunnel ball teams were still there. I thought this tunneling up the hill, this works well. Because the moment they got on the flat, all of a sudden the ball was just racing, So the under 11s went first, and they won in record time. Nobody in the under 11s had ever won that quickly. And they got a medallion. Under 12s went next. They also won, not record time, but they won. And the under 13s also won in record time. All three teams won the Victorian Championship tunnel ball. And all I'd done was teach him how to deliver and how to tunnel up the hill. So
Wow.
I don't know.
Change the approach, change the mindset.
And the boys became winners in their own mind, and that helped as well.
Yeah. Wow.
So, yeah.
Just shows it, doesn't it? You know, it just sometimes you just need someone that can see things a slightly different way, that has that slightly different approach. You know, it's kind of like Dead Poets Society, you know, where Robin Williams gets them to stand up at their desk and look down. It's exactly the same thing. It's just having a slightly different approach. It's just having.
But we also practiced every day.
Yeah.
Every day.
Oh, yeah. Again, do the work. You know, back to what we said earlier. It's about showing up and doing the work, but having that different approach, that different perspective.
At the end of the first round, the school sports, all the good boys, all the good runners, all the good high jumpers, whatever, all wanted to come then and be part of the tunnel ball team because they were still winners. And I said,
No.
These boys have earned it. They've earned it. You've had your chance in your sport. Let them win or fail by their own. So no change.
Yeah. The underdogs had earned their right to be there.
Yes. And the other thing was, all these Italians and Greeks and Turks who'd been fighting in the yard for the last 12 months and they're friends.
Wow.
Sociably, they had cohesiveness they didn't have before.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Again, one of the themes of sport, bringing people together
and laughter. There was laughter because initially they'd bounce the ball up into the groin of the person behind them. We'd all laugh.
Yeah.
Apart from the boy who got groined. Yeah.
So like that's tying into those kind of universal themes of, you know, of the underdog, of sport bringing people together, of, you know, the things that bring us all together rather than unite us rather than divide us.
Yes, that's right. Yep. Well, I think I'm done.
You're done. Stick me with a fork and tell me I'm done.
Yep. I think it's been long enough. I've either put people to sleep or they're going, oh, bring him back again.
I think you'll find that there's been plenty in here that's kept people more than entertained. Don't you worry.
No, but thank you for having me, and I do hope it has been entertaining. All I've done is talk about things I've, believe and have done. So we'll see. And when the new book comes out, eventually I might come back.
Yeah, and like I say, we'll make sure that all the links are there for people to check that out for sure. I think there's been a lot of value. I think there's been a lot in there that people will certainly get a lot out of, a lot of encouragement, a lot for people to learn. So thank you so much for coming along and for sharing your wisdom and your knowledge and your experience with us all.
Good. I had a couple of quotes. I don't know if I've done them all. Hang on. Oh, yeah. Einstein, stay away from negative people. They have a problem for every solution.
Yeah, that's gold.
And one that is very important. Comfort zones are where dreams go to die.
I like that.
So I'll leave that with them as a last thought.
I was going to say, what a great note to finish on.
Yeah.
Don't give up on your dreams. Don't let them die.
All your dreams exist outside your comfort zone. Otherwise, it's not a dream.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. You're, what do they say? If you're uncomfortable, you're normally in the right place.
Well, you're growing.
If it feels like you're a little bit out of your depth, you're probably on the right track.
That's growth. Yep.
Awesome. John, thank you so much. It's been an awesome show, totally different to Sharon's as we knew it would be. But between Sharon's show last week and your show this week, if people don't get value out of that, then they won't find value anywhere.
Oh, I'm glad you said that. And I hope your ratings go up and up and up.
Oh, I'm sure they will. How could they not, right?
True. All right. Thank you for that.
Hey, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. You have a good one. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.